Welcome back to day 5 of our study where we're walking with Jesus from Palm Sunday to Easter. And today we're looking at what happened on Thursday of Jesus' final week. Now there's a lot that's recorded in Scripture that happens on this day, especially in the book of John. Like on this day, Jesus gives many familiar phrases like, I'm the way and the truth and the life. I'm the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. In this world you'll have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. But if we really boil down the whole day, it involves 3 main scenes. So there's preparations for the Passover meal, which are made. This is where Jesus instructs a couple of the disciples to secure an upper room in a home near Jerusalem where they will partake of the Passover meal. Then there's the Last Supper. This is where Jesus eats the Passover meal with his disciples. And the book of John on this event alone gives us 5 chapters, John 13 through 17. And then we have the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, one thing of note here, if you're reading the scripture along with this devotional, we understand Jesus as having died on the day of Passover, which we often attribute to Friday, which may lead some to wonder, well, if they celebrated the Passover on Thursday night, then how come we say Jesus died on Passover and that was Friday? Well, in Jewish thought, they saw time a little bit different than us, in that to them, a new day would have begun at nightfall. So to help you visualize this, theologian Andreas Kostenberger put together a chart that I found helpful. And we're going to bring that on the screen now. Thursday for us, think about that, for them would have been Wednesday nightfall to Thursday nightfall. So that's the day of Passover preparation. And then Friday for them would have been Thursday nightfall to Friday nightfall. And that's the day of Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread. And then Saturday would have been Friday nightfall to Saturday nightfall. That's the Sabbath, and Sunday is Saturday night to Sunday nightfall, the first day of the week. So when they eat the Passover meal, to us, it was on Thursday night. But according to the Jewish reckoning of time, Friday had already begun. And this is how Jesus ate the Passover on Friday and was also crucified on Friday. It's simply because they looked at days a little bit different than we do. Now, I really want to encourage you to engage with the scripture because there's so much rich teaching on this day that I just won't be able to get to in our devotional. Now, you may have heard this day referred to as Maundy Thursday. Now, why do we call it that? Well, we get this from a familiar statement Jesus made on this day where Jesus said, "A new command I give you, love one another." You know, the word for commandment in Latin is the word mandatum. So you can see where we get Maundy Thursday. And so on this day, I want us to focus in on that teaching Jesus gave his disciples in the book of John. Now question, why did he call this a new command? Because it wasn't like this command had never existed before. Multiple places before here, Jesus tells us to love others. So this isn't a new command, as in it's never existed before. It's new in that it's a shift that's taken place. What's that shift? He continues, "As I have loved you, so you must love one another." So this is a shift. In other words, the golden rule says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But Jesus took the golden rule one step further. We might call it the platinum rule. And he basically says, do unto others as I have done unto you. That's a shift. Because now how we want to be treated is no longer the standard for how we love. The standard for our love is the way Jesus loved and the way he loved us. And the same love he has for us is the love we're to show to one another. That's the shift. And now Jesus goes on to show us why it's so important. And he gives us 2 main reasons. Here's reason number 1, because love shows who we follow. You know, my freshman year of college, I was out doing some fishing with some of my friends in the Tugelo River near Toccoa, Georgia. And while we were fishing, a DNR officer came to check our fishing licenses. Problem was, I didn't bring mine with me, or any identification for that matter. Whoops. So he pulled out a ticket and started writing it out and said, "I'm going to need to see some identification." And I looked at him and said, "I'm really sorry, officer, but I don't have my ID on me." And he just stared at me and started shaking his head and said, "Then how am I supposed to know who you are?" And that's the question that's really at the heart of what Jesus says next. Let's read it together. He said, "By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Jesus pointed to one specific thing that is the identifying characteristic of his followers. It isn't how many Bible verses you've memorized or the church you attend. Nope. He says everyone will know who you are by how you love. Love shows who we follow. Here's the second reason he gives. That's why this is so important. Reason number 2, because love makes God visible. See, when we love one another, people will end up seeing more than us. They see Jesus. Look back at what he said again. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. In other words, when we love one another, not only does it show who we follow, but he says, hey, they'll know you're my disciples. In other words, they're going to see me. And from that exchange with Jesus, if there was any disciple who got it, it was John. And in another of his writings, we find John reminiscing on the night with Jesus. And look at what he says. He says, dear friends, since God so loved us, we ought to love one another. Sound familiar? Then he continues, no one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us and his love is made complete in us. John is saying God's love in us is made complete and grows when we act in love towards one another. But look at what else he's implying. He's getting at the fact that when we love one another, we make God who is unseen seen. And when love is shown, God is seen and people are changed. And so today, as you reflect on Christ's deep love for you, ask him to help you share that same love with those you come across today. A new commandment I give to you. Love one another. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you back tomorrow.